I gave up on getting spears over a decade ago. In fact, when they announced that Warrior would be getting staff during Secrets of the Obscure, part of the reason I was so excited was because it meant I got the weapon that most closely resembles a spear on land finally. Then, ArenaNet drops the bombshell of land spears for everyone in Janthir Wilds, and my warrior heart was over the moon with joy. And then I used it in the beta. I've got some disappointment and some hope. The reason for that disappointment is that the spear is my favorite warrior weapon concept by far. When I read through the article, I was envisioning a fantastic gap-closing weapon for world versus world groups or even just skirmishing. The idea of this ranged weapon becoming more effective as you get closer is a perfect complement to a melee-focused build to give it some adaptability, or even a close-range kiting-focused build. As a warrior main, I'm not afraid to admit that the weapon selection doesn't exactly spark joy for me anymore. A lot of it feels very similar. There's no exhilarating weapon for me anymore after this long on warrior. But spear has such a strong potential to be the most unique warrior weapon concept in the game. It's clear as day that the intention was a skirmishing weapon, with the evasive maneuver baked into Harrier's tossed burst skill, the cripples and immobilizes from maiming spear and disruptive throw, and spear swipe that lets you evade backwards and knock your enemy even further away from you. In theory, if executed well, this weapon could give you a lot of survivability and control over a melee-heavy opponent in combat. In practice, it falls a bit flat. The damage output is pretty high maintenance, considering that it struggles to keep any sort of pace with other DPS warrior builds. 3 of your 6 skills all require manual precision targeting, and in PvE, one of the more damaging abilities is the dodge and knockback skill Spear Swipe, which means you have to add movement into it as well. So if you slip up at any positions or the enemy you happen to be fighting moves a lot, you could easily miss big portions of your damage output. Even worse, the Spear Swipe ability's damage is completely hamstrung in World vs. World, doing less than 100 damage during my short playtime, which is incredibly disappointing since it's one of the better damage skills. Throw in the fact that the spear itself will get you 0 boons and only causes the immobilize, cripple, and situationally a daze condition, or if you go berserker, the vulnerability from your wild throw burst skill, and it paints a picture of an unfavorable weapon. Not to mention, the benefits in general that you get for being closer to your targets are pretty mediocre. The delay on Spear Marshal's support is trivial to me, only saving 1 second. While an argument could be made that it gets harder to block with lower delay, that only matters in competitive content. Maiming Spear and Mighty Throw both have mediocre results for getting closer. A few more targets or a wider radius is good, but it's not nearly good enough. I think the trade-off for having to get close with a ranged weapon should result in higher damage outputs, not minimal buffs. Really punishing people for trying to get close to us if they're a melee build, or reward warriors for still sticking close to an enemy that is ranged focused. Now, I haven't really read any of the forum or Reddit posts or even watched anyone else's videos on any of the spears yet because I wanted my raw, unfiltered opinion for this. I have seen plenty of negative comments on YouTube in the form of community post comments on my own page, or even the titles of fellow creators. I almost made this video about a deep dive into all the problems about it that I found myself, but someone inspired me not to. Someone actually made me realize that I actually love the spear. Maybe not as it was in the beta, but what it can be, what it is conceptually, and what it means for the game. And do we really want to punish them for a less than perfect beta delivery? I know I don't. It's a beta. And I've made jokes about land spear when for so long that I forgot to keep making them after a while. I mean, many other people assumed we'd never see a brand new weapon in Guild Wars 2. And while yes, technically the framework is in the game, as it always was an underwater weapon, it's different. It's 9 entirely new weapon concepts, design philosophies, and can we just admit, some of the sickest animations I've seen from Guild Wars 2 in a long time. I mean, come on, I'm actually excited to play Elementalist, and I don't even have a Netflix subscription to watch when I switch to the downstate attunement. For warriors in particular, this weapon concept, when tweaked and executed well, could create a dynamic for Warrior I haven't really ever seen. For me, Warrior has always been a very aggressive, in-your-face combat, with the rare exception of niche killshot Warrior builds or some Kandi Zerker builds that use bow. The fact that we've gotten a whole new to 9 classes land-based weapon may open the door for new, truly unique to the game weapons to come in. I'm not saying that's for sure the case, and I don't really honestly know what else we could add, but the fact that the team is tackling the idea of a whole new weapon all at once to balance around indicates the possibility that they could do it again if this is well received and executed. On top of that, I've got my own personal conspiracy that we might start to see the rework of underwater combat. I mean, come on, hear me out. We've got a hybrid underwater and land weapon now. Swim speed infusions got changed a bit, and suddenly there's an underwater treasure hunting bonus event going on that also allows us to further buff swim speed on our account. Throw in the massive new Homestead update, the PvP game mode update on the horizon, which, much like underwater combat, has seen almost no new love since launch. And I think it's pretty clear that, at least for me, spears are a single pillar of a renewed focus on innovation in Guild Wars 2. I'd love to see the spear get some more buffs in the form of even straight damage increases as you close the distance on your target. Maybe some skill targeting changes so there's less of a reliance on manual skill aiming from the player, or maybe, since the spear promotes close-ranged kiting the way it's been conceptualized, we can get a trait adjustment that gives spear a stacking damage boost or something when dealing damage to targets within a 450 range or something. Increased damages to immobilized and or crippled targets could also be another viable thing, since we have 2 skills that do that currently, and maybe with the rework we could get a little bit more if they choose to go that way. And I don't know, maybe a spear that is actually out of nowhere with the steel chair. I don't know, adventurers. The closest I get to game design is running my D&D campaigns, but man, I love this concept. And I really hope ArenaNet gets plenty of good constructive criticism in this beta, because I'm absolutely pumped for this. I've got a lot of cautious optimism in ArenaNet for this, as my concerns with Warrior staff during the beta pretty much all got addressed before the live launch of that. I gotta say, Janthir Wilds is really shaping up to be an exciting launch between new Coden, a whole new to each class land weapon, and the long awaited personal housing update coming in the form of homesteads. I did a deep dive to figure out what home instance nodes I could buy before the launch date in August to pay for themselves and make money hand over fist. But you should only click here if you want to figure out how to make a ton of money with almost no real effort.